Hey guys, welcome to my video where I talk about things that I find fascinating, and I hope you do too. Here in this video, I have no clue what I've got planned, if I'm being honest. I'm kind of just going on a ramble here. So a lot of the things that I've been learning about recently have been very interesting. A lot of it has to do with biology, but looking at biology from an objective perspective. And I know that sounds weird, right? Like, what do you mean? Obviously, the biology that we have now is very objective. I would say yes, within our perceptual framework. And so what I'm trying to do is work with others and do research into what a biological orientation would look like outside of our respective perceptual bias. And in order to do that, we have to take some fundamental axioms such as self self organizing systems having purpose and have relevant information that they are aware of, but not self-aware of. We forget that self-consciousness is a meta-awareness, and just because you are not aware of the systems going on in your brain, the automatic systems going on, you're not conscious of them. That doesn't mean that you, as a agent, as a full fundamental agent, everything that you are is aware of such processes. You are aware of them, just not consciously aware. And you have to be careful with it, because I would say by my standard, they would be consciously aware. It's just the conscious awareness hasn't reached that point of complexity to get to that self-awareness that is that meta-awareness, the awareness of awareness. And that's where I'm trying to get to, and I'm using RCAs, and RCA stands for rudimentary conscious agent, and they're really fun. I'm using just a philosophical framework of one bounded experience per RCA. And so the experience is the rudimentary system. It's an excitation of fundamental reality, I guess you could say, or you could even call it fundamental consciousness. And I don't want to sound like a panpsychist, because I'm not quite bought into the whole everything is consciousness. There are things that can have different qualitative aspects that still lie within the mental realm. And so if we were to take everything as mental, I guess I could be okay with that, as long as it's there's different respective qualitative boundaries that cannot supersede a perceptual pathway that you are in, derived from nature. So that's a lot of the things that I've been researching and looking at recently. It's been super fun. It's been awesome. I'm doing all this research I'm hoping for my master's thesis for cognitive neuropsychology, and that would be really awesome if I could do that. And so I'm just going to continue, and I've got other ideas too. It's not the only idea I've got, so we'll see how it all goes. I'm excited how everything's going to turn out, and I'm ready to really just dive in to learning. What I will say is, in developing my ideas, I've used ChatGPT o1, not to develop them, but to debate. I'll give them my framework and what I've written. I'll be like, find every single hole. If you were a critic, I want you to give the absolute best critiques and find all the illogical fallacies within my framework. And it does that for me really well, and so I'm able to carefully write everything the way that I need to. And it also makes me feel a little less insane that this, at least the robot understands what I'm saying. you know? So I know my framework isn't terrible, and yeah, I'll see how it all goes, how it develops, and I think it's going to be fun. And I think it's something that everyone should think about, because it really gets to the bottom of the study of being, ontology, and maybe even its orientation within the confines of purpose as well. Because purpose is something that I think we should all figure out what that is. I mean, purpose is a very complex orientation, I guess I should say. The purpose of our lives. There is really, you have to be very careful saying that there is a specific purpose for human beings, because it lies within completely qualitatively subjective experiences, and each one is going to be different. And the conscious, the quality of each specific experience would probably be different, even if it manifested as the same behaviors to get to the point of a purposeful life. So you have to be very careful saying that that purpose is confined to a specific mode of aim in your life. It's not. You can find purpose. I would say that there are things that show what purpose is. I mean, I would say genuine expression, getting okay with yourself. Okay, here's something that'll be really interesting for all of y'all brain science nerds. So there's something called the insula diamine ACC axis interaction. And what this does is that it activates when you come across information that is relevant to you're the essence of yourself. It's relevant to you, but is different than the current fundamental values that shape your perception. And so right there, it activates the default mode network and starts going into self-referential processing. And then that's when you get the feeling of what people would explain as revelation, or maybe even divine revelation, to where the fullness of your self is out there. It's a very ego disillusion type experience, because you are observing the information that you need and the information that is there. And so you're figuring out if the energy to switch such values will, first of all, aid in your survival, and will, second, make you feel good, in that it will base itself on the most relevant information to you as a being. So I think all of that's really cool. So and I would say that has to do with purpose. I would say our fundamental values are being used in the abstraction to conscious purpose, if that makes sense. And I would say that purpose itself on a timeline is actually always being used. Purpose itself is, I would say, innate. I would say we always have a purpose, and that is because nothing in life is meaningless. I don't think so. I think if you were to say life is completely meaningless, I would say that is a spectrum. That you're on the other side of the spectrum there, my friend. And that pull throughout that timeline of progression to that ideal is very purposeful and rich with meaning, and rich with experience, that I think is fundamental in orientation, which I would say is almost synonymous with purpose itself. So no matter what, you're going to live a purposeful life. You're going to live a very informative life, even if it's not capital T truth. It is information that is worth processing, which is also why it's very important to be okay with yourself. If you hate yourself, you're never going to be able to grow. You have to understand that humility is not thinking less about yourself, or not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking less about yourself, to where you are not part of that self-awareness aspect always, to where you're constantly critiquing yourself and bringing yourself down, because that is a absolutely terrible way to live. It really is. And so I guess all of that to say is it's very based in your psyche, your neurobiology. All of it is inside of us, you could say. And I do think that we can make the most of our situations, and I think there's very good research that shows that this is the case. And I guess I want to share this from my perspective, because I know it's hard listening to motivational speakers, especially when they're right. I would say it's really hard to listen to them. It's kind of the same feeling as when, you're about to go do the dishes, and your mom tells you to go do the dishes, and now you don't want to do the dishes. It's practically the same thing, because it's direct opposition to your ideals. And I would say that because a lot of motivational speakers really do speak directly against your ideals, it might have the same effect. And it's also just kind of a lot. It's very overstimulating as well. And I can be overstimulating, if I'm being honest, but I think that it's good to look at it from a different perspective, as opposed to really feeling, really, really knowing, and then through that find how profound and how experiential you want that process to be for yourself. And there, start with breaking down those walls that have been holding you back from creating meaningful experience in your life. And listen, I know how much suffering there is in the world. Actually, that's a terrible claim. If anyone says that they know that, they're completely wrong. Sorry. I am aware of that of the fact that there are horrors beyond my imagination that go on every day. I'm aware of that, and I don't exactly know. I find myself in a very uncomfortable position when I hear that, because I was very lucky. I've been surrounded by very loving people throughout my life, and so I wouldn't say that's made me naive. That might be naive. Don't get me wrong. That I think that I'm not, but I understand. But even despite that, I see people who complain that other people suffer, and then I look at the people actually suffering, and I see how much they're making their experience worthwhile, and it's great. I mean, there's so many factors that are holding us back. Obviously, a lot of that is monetary, right? A lot of that is the community you surround yourself with, the constant ability to take in pleasure everywhere we look. All of those things are going to hold you back from really discovering the true essence of yourself, because you're able to run away. You're not you become comfortable with your illusion as opposed to what's real. The more that characterizes life is something that is difficult, and while very positive at the end, is not through. Because especially when I mentioned the insula DMN ACC axis interaction, that is not a pleasant experience. That is usually activated when you hit the lowest point in your life, and you have to reprocess everything that led you to that point. And it's something that can also activate in different other situations, and it might even affect the step by step, moment by moment interaction socially with what you predict as well. It's also a predictive process, because your values are going to predict what relevant information is in your environment, and then continue to then bind together the conscious experience that is most relevant to you, and that is based on a physiological system of values in your brain, and maybe even in other places of your body too. I mean, heck if I know, right? Obviously, experience happens in the brain, but I would say that with my definition of experience, I would say that even single-celled organisms have bound experience to them, and can make those simple yes and no orientations. And it's very interesting saying that, because you have to understand that simple biological life isn't oriented by value. I mean, you could say it's fairly similar, but it's very binary in nature. It's setting the correct perceptions based on the relevant information by saying, yes, this is what you do, this is not what you do. And that's how the simple systems progress, and then integrate it together to get more complex systems, and then we continued. And I'm hoping that eventually we'll be able to understand how we've really progressed to the point to where we understand the nature of the human mind, or even a little more primitive minds as well within nature, and maybe even the mind of nature itself, though I don't think we'll get there. Maybe I can find some people who can help me with that adventure, but it is very hard to find people who also find this stuff interesting, that's for sure. But I mean, they're out there, but they're just at university, and I'm doing college online, so I need to start really pursuing what I need to pursue. I'm going to try to get a couple of certificates, and then finish online school, get my associates, and then see what opportunities will put themselves in front of me. And, I'm sure I could find a pretty good college, and if not, I'll just go to the military, and then after that, I'll go to college. So either way, I'm chilling. I'll be fine. Now, going to the military is scary, because I'm practically selling my body to the government for 2 years, so that might not be a really good decision, potentially. But if it means free-ish college, I'll take it. That's for sure. But anyways, I think that's going to be it. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter video, but I really find this whole thing fascinating. What I'm really trying to put together. It's an ontology. It's called MEIES, MICE, which is maximally elongated informative experiential success. And that's the framework that I am using. And I think it's really fun. I love it a whole lot. And it's fun being able to kind of just mess around with different ideas and see what works together and what clicks and what doesn't. And man, I would recommend everybody just start writing. Just things, write ideas down. You have no clue what your mind is capable of, especially if you're younger. And if you're older, oh man, you can use that experience to then begin the process of extrapolating to the point of beautiful imagination. And I would encourage everyone to just start writing down their ideas and really allow themselves to be free. Be free in your creative expression, and then allow logic to come in after. And I think that's very physiologically based, because what happens in the brain is that your emotional response is first, and then it's your logical higher order thinking that takes charge after that. So allow that to be the case in your creative expression. Allow the emotions to guide your intellect. It's supposed to lead your decision making in the right direction. It's primordial. It's a primordial system, your limbic system, and it's some of the most primal parts of your brain. And it was developed because it was useful. It was very useful, and so I would recommend using 100% of your brain. Okay, because we can do that. Actually, we do use every single part of our brain. Whoever spread that rumor that we only use 10 is an idiot, and so, because of that, I will try to stop that rumor from spreading. And I think most people already know that that's a lie. So, anyways, I will talk to you guys later. See ya.